Help me welcome Joe Hirsch.
Well, that was it, really. Get back on the charter buses. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andy. Actually, what Andy didn't tell you is that he and I went for lunch last week. I gave him his very first kosher meal at an Israeli restaurant. I take it you've never been. The food was great. The atmosphere was fantastic. The service, well, it can get a little gruff. It's all part of the charm, something to be expected. Even becomes something of an old joke. It goes like this. A group of American, Russian, Indian, and Israeli dignitaries were sitting down to dine at one of their favorite restaurants when all of a sudden they were spotted by an enterprising young reporter who made her way over to their table and asked, "Excuse me, gentlemen, what's your opinion about the recent meat shortage affecting the Midwest?" Men looked around the table at each other a little confused, apparently not understanding the question. Long silence settled in until finally the American spoke up and asked, "What's a shortage?" And the Russian asked, "What's an opinion?" And the Indian asked, "What's meat?" And the Israeli asked, "What's excuse me?" All part of the charm. So let me begin with my manners and let you know what an absolute pleasure it is to be joining you here today at Therapy Thursday, where I understand you get quite the range of lunchtime entertainment. Navy SEALs and NFL stars, presidents of universities and presidents of the United States, business leaders, big and small, and today, somehow, you have me. In case you're wondering, I have been none of those things. My parents think I should have been, but that's a talk for another time. Actually, I'm interested in silos, not the ones where we store grain, the kind where we stick people. Actually, if we're being exact about it, the kind of places where people tend to stick themselves. Silos. I don't like that people make them. I try to help businesses break them. Because the truth is, unless someone shows us our way out of a silo, we tend to spend most of our lives stumbling inside of it. Now, the truth is, as business leaders, I don't need to tell you just how problematic silos can be. The tension they create among teams, the disconnect they create in the workplace. And while we could point to many different forms of silos that affect our everyday work lives, let me focus on just one in particular that I've observed in my consulting work, and it's a big one. It runs deep. Say you have an energy management firm that helps companies measure, reduce, and report energy costs using proprietary software. Okay? John is a software engineer. Tim is in sales. They're both critical to their company's success, but are secretly critical of one another. Yeah. Now, take John. John is a numbers guy, loves data and code. In school, he worked hard, hit the books, got good grades. He is a master of the hard sciences and of solving problems. Then you have Tim, the sales guy. Tim's no slog himself. In school, he hit the books, studied hard, got good grades. Unlike John, he doesn't care that much for numbers. He'd rather spend time with people, which actually is where he spent most of his time instead of studying with John late at night in the library. It's not to say that Tim didn't do well. He did just fine. In fact, he mastered a different form of success. He is a master of soft skills and forming relationships. So there you have it, John and Tim. They both do the work that needs to get done, but beneath the surface, they are deeply siloed individuals who create distance, discord, and disconnect every day in their workplace. If you ask John what he really thinks about Tim, he might say, "Tim, that party-going, glad-handing frat boy gets way more compensation and appreciation than he deserves. He doesn't even understand the things that we do to really make this business work." And if you ask Tim what he really thinks about John, well, he might say, "John, that numbers-crunching, systems-loving grunt gets way more compensation and appreciation than he deserves. He doesn't even understand the things we do to really make this business work." Does this sound familiar to you? Because it happens every day in businesses everywhere. And the longer people like John and Tim are stuck in their silos, the tougher and more problematic those silos become. until suddenly you don't have just a people problem on your hands, you have a business problem. And when you have business problems like that, it creates distance, discord, and disconnect every day in the workplace. The truth is that if you want to move your company, your workplace, from a silo maker to a silo breaker, there are some things you can do. We'll talk about those at the very end. But for right now, let's push pause on that conversation and just recognize for a moment that as tough as those silos can be, they are, after all, just a first world problem. Am I right? Being here today at Momentous reminds me that there are people out there who actually face genuine hardship, whose troubles follow them along no matter where they go, stubbornly and persistently. I recently met someone like this. Her name is Yolanda Mendoza. Actually, it's not Tony Romo. I think she throws a better 60-yarder than he does, though. I met Yolanda here actually not too long ago, not too far from where you and I are talking right now. In case you don't know Yolanda, she grew up under some pretty difficult circumstances. She grew up in Oaxaca under the specter of abuse and toxic stress. She did not have the easiest life. There she is with her two beautiful children. And fortunately for her, when she hit young adulthood, things started to turn a corner. She met a nice guy, got married, had kids, moved to Dallas, and started a new chapter in her life. And for a while, things seemed to turn the corner. But the past, as we know, has a way of stubbornly catching up with us. And pretty soon it became clear to Yolanda that if she wanted to lead the life that she wanted for herself and her family, she needed some outside support. She found that here at Momentous, which, as you know, is changing the odds for thousands of kids and their families every year through the therapeutic and educational services they provide. We're talking about more than 22,000 clinical interventions in just the past 5 years, a high school graduation rate of 99%, which is incredible, considering that by the time these seniors put on their cap and gown, they're almost 7 years removed from their momentous education. 99%. By comparison, I graduated in the part of my high school class that made the other 99% possible. True story. Yolanda's story and the wonderful work of Momentous is told in my new book, The Feedback Fix, which is coming out in just a couple of weeks. And I'm convinced that that story, Momentous' story, needs to be told now more than ever. As my friend Michelle Kinder likes to say, in the age of Google, knowledge isn't the differentiator. Social emotional health is. And she couldn't be more right. Will you join me for a moment in recognizing the wonderful work of Michelle and her talented team, many of whom are here today, for all the things they are building each and every day here at this fantastic institution. And now if you'll do that for me at the end, I'll feel very happy. Actually, come to think of it, what Momentous is building here is just the opposite of a silo. It's a circle. Think back to your high school geometry class. For me, that would be freshman and sophomore year, with a little bit of summer school mixed in between. The thing about a circle, if you remember back in class, is that no matter where you fall along the rim of the perimeter of the circle, you're never quite far from the center. All points are equidistant from the nucleus. Doesn't matter how far away you are, you're never quite far away. And to me, that captures the work of Momentous, building a circle, pulling people off the periphery, taking them off the margins, and bringing them into the middle. By communicating strong relationships and high expectations, Momentous isn't just changing the odds, it's crushing them. And it does so every single day with the support of individuals such as yourselves, who through your work are making that circle a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter, a little bit more inclusive. And let me just add, It takes a special kind of confidence to pull off that shade of red pants that y'all wear at the Byron Nelson. Kudos to you guys. The truth is, what the Momentous story tells me is that we never know how someone's going to surprise us if we just give them the chance. I heard a wonderful story about this from Sir Ken Robinson, the great educationalist of our time, which, as I say that, is probably causing you to wonder, is that even a job? Or is that something that teachers put on their LinkedIn page to make their mothers happy? Have you met my son, the educationalist, so tall and handsome? The story goes like this. Teacher walks into class one day during a drawing exercise and notices that there's a little girl in the back of the room who's drawing a picture with this incredible focus and attention, which is quite odd for this young girl because she almost never has focus or pays attention. Teacher goes over to the student and says, "What are you drawing?" And the student says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher says, "But we don't know what God looks like." And the student says, "We will in a minute." It's natural for us to draw our own renditions of what we believe others are thinking and feeling. That's what happened to John and Tim. That's what happens in many workplaces all around us every single day. It doesn't have to be that way. We can turn silos into circles. Instead of stumbling around our preconceived notions of people and products, we can step around them and form the kind of open-minded and inclusive relationships that we really ought to enjoy and can if we do just a few simple things. So let me conclude with a couple of practical takeaways. 3 things you can do right now if you want to turn your company, your business, your life from a place of silo making into silo breaking. Number 1, get people to bump up against each other. Create the time and space that's necessary for individuals to enjoy meaningful relationships. I'm not just talking about the open office floor plan that allows for casual encounters or quick check-ins. I'm talking about something that's much more intentional, concentrated, and job embedded. A workshop for your staff, cross-functional teaming, a company read. These may not break the silo, but they'll make it just a little bit softer, a little bit more porous. Number 2, increase people's capacity for empathy. Once in a while, get people out of their comfort zones, out of their zone of practice, and move them into someone else's space so they can see what life is like for them over there. I know of a great company, a paper company in Scranton, PA, that actually did this one day. They took all their sales guys and they brought them down into the warehouse to spend time with the production guys to really see what goes on down there. And it was a revelation for everybody. Now granted, that company was Dunder Mifflin, and it took place on an episode of The Office, but the point stands, my friends. Ignorance breeds in isolation. Am I right? If we want people to understand each other, then we need to break them out of their shells. Finally, number 3, create opportunities for information sharing. Silos naturally come about when people can pass information from one department to the other, right? That's the definition of a silo. What we can do is start to create ways for information to pass more naturally and seamlessly, but that doesn't mean turning the information spigot on high. People don't want to be doused with information. They prefer that it come in a slow drip. So what we can do is create cultural translators, people with the education background and communication savvy who have the understanding to move between specialist silos and translate for one department what's going on outside in another. So there you have it. Proximity, empathy, information sharing. If we do those 3 things, and there's more that we can do, but that's a good start. If we do those 3 things, then we'll start to move our companies, our businesses, our personal lives from silo making to silo breaking. And if we're brave enough and bold enough to make that fearless shift from silos to circles, to stop letting people remain content to stay apart and to bring them closer together, then we'll do a world of good. Our businesses will be happier, our workplaces will be heartier, our relationships will be healthier. To me, it comes down to a simple question: silos or circles? What do you want the people in your lives to be building? Thanks for spending time today. Appreciate it very much.